absolutely humbled to be here with all of you today. This is my first time ever in South America, my first time ever in Chile, and it is absolutely delightful. The moment I landed at the airport, I got internet and I texted my girlfriend, should we move here? Because it is beautiful. Response, packing my bags. I absolutely love it here, and I've actually got to drink some amazing coffee so far, and I can't wait to explore the city more tomorrow. But I'm not going to talk about Chile and my new love for Chile. I'm going to talk about building applications in C# with Xamarin across every single platform. How many of you are building apps with Xamarin at all today? A few of you. How many of you know about Xamarin at all? A few of you. Cool. About half, a little bit there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on a whirlwind tour, because they only gave me 24 minutes and 10 seconds to do everything about Xamarin and kind of the future of where we're going. So I'm going to give a brief overview of Xamarin, do a little bit of demos, blow some minds. It's going to be awesome. Henry's going to love it, and you will too. He's mono numero uno. So let's do it. I'm James Montemagno. I'm a principal program manager here at Microsoft for all of our mobile developer tools across every single platform. I actually worked at Xamarin before the acquisition, and I was a customer of Xamarin before that. I love the technology of building applications on any single platform in C# so much that I joined the company. Then, when they were acquired by Microsoft, I loved it so much, and I love Microsoft so much, that I came along for the ride. I live in this sunshiny city of Seattle, Washington, where currently it is 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 5 inches of snow on the ground. I'm glad to be in Chile. I moved there to drink all of our amazing coffee and, of course, to build mobile applications. I've been there 6 years. And I used to write printer software down in Phoenix. And I thought, printer software, that's cool. And everyone loves printer software. But I decided that mobile applications were the future. And I moved up there on a whim at a small job that I got off of Twitter, which was really funny. And my first day on my job, my boss said, we need an iOS, Android, and Windows apps in 2 months. Go. And I was like, all right, that sounds good. I mean, I've written one mobile app, and you hired me to be your entire pipeline from design, development, test, and deployment. There was no VSTS back then. There was no all this magical stuff. I was the one doing all of it. And that's when I found Xamarin and fell in love. Now, after this, you can find me anytime. You can follow me on Twitter at James Montemagno. That's also my GitHub, where all the demos that I'm going to show today are at, or just email me. If you like me so much and you want to hear more, you can. I have a podcast called Merge Conflict, which is a super awesome name for a podcast. We talk about all sorts of things about .NET development, not just Xamarin. And I also have a video show on Channel 9 called The Xamarin Show. You can see which one I named. It's a show about Xamarin. I was real creative there. You can go to xamarinshow.com. But let's talk about Xamarin itself. And the reason I fell in love with it and have loved it for the last 6 years is our real proud tradition. We are native first. We're all about creating native applications across every single platform. And we want to deliver 100% API access. So anything that developers can do in Java, Objective-C, or Swift, you can do it in C# inside of Visual Studio, whether you're on a PC or whether you're on a Mac. And of course, we pride ourselves on same-day releases of operating systems to give you as a developer access to those APIs as soon as a Java, Objective-C, or Swift developer gets them, so you can deliver great app experiences to the App Store and to your users. So Xamarin is native, but what does it mean to build native applications? Well, over the last 6 years, I've really toyed with the idea of what does it mean to be native, and I at least say there's 3 things that it must be. There's a lot more. But first and foremost, you have to create beautiful native user interfaces. You have to optimize for each platform. There's a reason someone bought a Mac, a PC, an iOS, or Android device. They like the hardware, but they love the software. So we have to craft unique experiences that just can't look native. They actually have to physically be native. And of course, as developers, we want access to every single API. As soon as ARKit or ARCore is out, we want to have access to it to create unique experiences that will differentiate our app. We always wanted to be developing against the API, not someone else's API that they limit us in development. And of course, everything has to be super proficient and super performant when we're building apps. Now, at the same time, we want to use the best tools, and we don't want to have to write the same app over and over and over again. We want to get all of this by sharing code, by crafting native user interfaces, but we don't want them to run in a web browser, have limitations of what Java script and the browsers will give us. We want real native applications, and that's what Xamarin does. We enable developers to create a shared C# business logic backend for their applications. All their models, view models, RESTful service calls, SQL databases, Azure integrations, everything that is the same across each platform. Then we give you the tools inside of Visual Studio to build out a native, beautiful iOS, Android, and Windows user interface, and macOS, and Linux, and HoloLens, wherever you want to develop. We're able to do this because we leveraged the power of .NET and created a unique .NET runtime for iOS and Android and Mac. So how this works is I was a Windows developer forever. I fell in love with WinForms, then I fell in love with WPF, then they told me to write Silverlight. That was a great idea, so I did it. And then I moved on really quick over into anything else but Silverlight. And what I found here is that we have .NET, which is this amazing library of APIs that I can access as a developer. I kind of dot and do it. It's a bunch of stuff. And when I want to go to one of those platforms, I download an SDK and get access to all the platform-specific APIs. Think of it exactly the same with iOS and Android with Xamarin. We give you all of the .NET goodness that can be shared across all of your applications in a single library, and then access to every single API in iOS and Android. And we add C# bindings around them. So things like async await, lambdas, events, delegates, things that developers know and love. So even though you're accessing a native API, it feels familiar because it's in the world's best programming language, C#. That's a fact. And the same on Android. It just is. It's so good. I don't know. That's just me, but it's everybody. That's why everyone's copying us. That's what I like to say. So then, the same on Android, right? But you get all the Android stuff and all of Google Play services, all of the Android support libraries, all that goodness, all in C#. Makes me feel good. Now, with .NET, we want .NET to go absolutely everywhere. And with Xamarin, we're able to hit every single device out there. But of course, you're running your C# and .NET code absolutely everywhere, whether it's on a Linux machine, whether it's on a ASP.NET Core application, a web API, whether you want to run it in Azure, someone else's cloud, wherever you want to do, right? And we're able to leverage and enable you to share code by something called .NET Standard. We said, hey, every single platform that supports C# and .NET, let's give developers a single API that they can share across all of their applications. And it looks a little bit something like this. No matter if you're developing traditional Windows desktop applications, Windows 10, cloud services, mobile, IoT, AI, games VR, anywhere C# .NET runs, you have a single library. You add that .NET Standard library, you have access to hundreds of thousands of APIs in your application that can be shared across any of these apps. And you can use any tool you want, whether you're a command line, VS Code person, or want to use the world's best IDE, Visual Studio and Visual Studio for Mac. So no matter where you're developing. Now, at the same time, we've enabled developers to get started building applications, sharing code, build beautiful native apps. But I know the struggle of building apps. I got to go download this tool. I got to worry about SDKs, emulators, simulators, Macs, PCs. It's kind of a headache. And when you do that for one platform, then multiply it by 2 or 3 platforms, it's a real headache. So we want to help developers get started faster. And we're doing that by making it easier to get started. First is installation. We're deeply integrated into the Visual Studio installer. You click one checkbox. And over the last 3 months, we've reduced our installation size by 60%, getting it so you can install and get ready faster than ever. At the same time, we have better templates, we have better emulator setup, and we configure your machine so it's perfect right out of the box. But we also want to improve the things that we hate doing, like stopping, debugging, recompiler code over and over again. So we're coming up with the tools that will enable you to get started faster than ever using Visual Studio and Visual Studio for Mac with Xamarin. And the first tool inside of here is after you install Visual Studio, you can use the brand new Xamarin Live Player, which will enable you to continuously deploy and debug your application without ever having to compile it. It works a little bit something like this. You write some code inside of Visual Studio. You connect your iOS or Android device over Wi-Fi to Visual Studio and deploy your app. Let me show you what that looks like. So I have an iOS device right here, and we're betting everything in the next 15 minutes on Rodrigo's iPhone tethering hotspot. It's all on you if this doesn't work. So first things first, I come into Visual Studio. Inside of here, I can say File, New Project, just like I always have. I have Android templates, I have iOS templates, tvOS applications. Under iOS, I even have Apple Watch. Xamarin supports every single platform, not just one or two, every platform. And under cross-platform, we have our cross-platform templates to give you an iOS, Android, Windows, and shared code base. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come and I'm going to attempt to pair my iOS device right here, 5856, boom. So this is my iOS device that I'm going to screen mirror over here. Now, a normal Xamarin application, I'm just going to, oops, not that one. There we go. Let's go ahead and pin this to the top. A normal Xamarin application looks a little bit like this. I have Android, iOS, I could add Windows, I could add Mac on top of here, and I have a shared code base. You can develop apps in two different ways. One with shared XAML user interfaces that are rendered natively on each platform, or access a storyboard in Android XML. It's up to you. I'll show you how we're going to do this. So I've come in, I've added a list view, a tab page. And what we're going to do is launch the Xamarin Live Player, and we're going to go ahead and say Tools, Xamarin Live Player, Manage Devices. We're going to go ahead and scan this QR code so you see it's real. Up, 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 up. And this will go ahead and pair it with Visual Studio. Now what I can do is select my iPhone player from the list and hit Debug. What this will do is over the local Wi-Fi, send all of my code files, and I'm in a real live debug session where my app has been interpreted on the device. Whoa. I can actually interact with it and hit breakpoints because I'm debugging. We wrote an interpreter and a debugger that's running inside of an iPhone in the Xamarin Live Player. That's how fast it should be to get started. Now, I'm debugging, I'm modifying my code, I'm redeploying, that's cool, that's great. You're like, James, woo, that's great. But what happens when I want to modify my code? What happens when all of your web developers are like, I can right-click, I can modify my HTML, I'm cool. And you're like, well, that's cool. What I'll do is I'll right-click and I'll say Live Run. What this is going to do is live run this current view in real time. All right, I'm going to set down this device right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to copy and paste a bunch of XAML. Now what's awesome here is I don't even have to hit save. My code changes are deployed to the device in real time. I can come in, if I don't like that, I'll say light coral. There we go. It takes my changes and instantly redeploys them. Ah, crazy. Now what if I want to work on other pages? Well, that's fine. I just tap on this tab page and now I have tabs. I literally am switching the context in real time. I want to go to my list view, there's my list view. If I want to come back to this page, that's awesome. If I want to work on the code behind, let's do it. Let's go back over here. Let's go ahead and delete this code. Now it'll redeploy. I'll hit the button, and boom. That is incredible. That is correct. That is how we're making it the best way to start developing applications. You don't even need to worry about gigs of Java, SDKs, emulators, anything like that. You download an app from the App Store, and you're immediately productive. Now, at some point, you may outgrow the live player. You might need to interact deeply with all sorts of different things. That's fine. Then it's time to install some emulators. But you can always come and work on a single screen at any time. Awesome. Oh, let's get rid of that. Bum, 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 bum. Cool. And at the same time, we're using cross-platform user interface here. Now, when I got started building Xamarin applications, I fell in love with our traditional approach. Building out a shared C# backend, all my business logic, all that stuff, and crafting a native iOS user interface, Android user interface, and a Windows XAML for my UI. And that was pretty awesome, and I was super happy. And I liked this approach to development because I was able to get access to every single bit of the UI. I could tweak and tune my applications for maximum performance. In this approach, you get one-to-one performance if you were actually writing it in Swift or Java. In fact, sometimes we're faster because our runtime and our .NET runtime is just better than Android's Dalvik or Art runtime. Now, at the same time, you saw I was developing in XAML. And that's where our Xamarin Forms cross-platform user interface comes in. It is essentially a way to say, I want some XAML or I want all XAML in my application. We abstracted all common controls, buttons, images, list views, things that were the same across every single application, and gave you a single way of doing that. Developers using this absolutely loved it, of course, because they could pick and choose what approach they wanted. Super high performant consumer applications, CRUD applications, and you can do all sorts of crazy things with Xamarin Forms. But what we realized is that while developers love this approach, they were jealous of the Xamarin Forms developers. Like, how come I don't get to write a little bit of XAML? How come I can't make that about screen, settings page, login screen shareable between all my apps? I got to write it 3 times. We said, no problem. We'll do that for you. We can make it so you can mix and match how much storyboard, how much Android XML, or how much XAML do you want. It works with any existing .NET application, stuff that we support and platforms we're going to support in the future. And what's great, it can be one screen, many screens, or your whole application. Let me show you what this looks like in a full Xamarin application. I'm going to hop back over into Visual Studio. And I'm going to minimize that one. I'm going to go here. Now, this is a full Xamarin application. Over here, I call this image search. This is using some of our services to go off and make a Bing image search that will pull down images for anything that I search for. And this normal Xamarin native application has an iOS application. We have a storyboard. We have code behind over here. Inside my Android application, we have a resources, drawables, layouts, all of my Android XML that's inside of here, and some main activity. Now, what's great here is that you have 100% access to every API. And it goes through its own linker, compiler, and optimizer to create a native application. That's why you have 2 or 3 different projects, because it is not cross-compiled. Every app is compiled into a native ARM assembly. But I have a bunch of shared code. So inside of here, I have some image results over here, some thumbnail links, file formats. I have a view model over here, which will be shared. So some cool things here. I have an observable collection of image results. I have this search for images async. Some cool things I'm using here in the world of Xamarin. I'm using some plugins for Xamarin. So I'm actually going to say, hey, did you enter anything to search for? And if you didn't, pop up a dialog box. I'm also going to check to see if you have internet from a single line of code. We've abstracted not only the user interface, but all common APIs. So you can do things like check connectivity, pop up dialog boxes, take photos, do fingerprint authentication, do Bluetooth scanning, anything you want from a single API. Call those plugins. They're awesome. Then I just have some code. Over here, I'm going to hit this Bing API. I'm going to go and use a HTTP client. I'm going to use JSON.NET to deserialize that. I'm going to use link to go over here and convert all those Bing results and update the list over here. So here's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to come over and I have it launched somewhere over here on my remote iOS simulator. And you can see the Wi-Fi struggling. But here's the application over on Android. Now, this image search application, I said, was written natively on each platform. We're going to see if my iOS simulator is going to work. Do it. What this is doing is I have an Android device right here that I'm actually screen mirroring. So I can actually scroll through this here, which is cool. The iOS application, which is struggling because it is communicating over Wi-Fi to my poor little MacBook Adorable that's in rose gold down here, over that poor iPhone that we are just abusing right now. And it has apparently gone away. Let's see if we can deploy it one more time. But I'll show you what this does over here. So I can come in and search for anything. And what I can do is I can search for cute monkeys. I can search for cute pandas. And on Android, we're seeing we have a recycler view. I have a floating action button. I have card views. And we have some cute pandas, which are great. And we'll see if the iOS one is going to go ahead and redeploy. And what I have over on iOS is a storyboard that actually has a UI collection view that can go and search for cute monkeys, because every app should be able to, at least at some point, search for cute monkeys. And here I am. Now, this UI is really unique because I have card views, I have recycler views, grids, columns, collection views. But I want to be able to maybe display some shared user interface. This is written twice, but calling that common code. So at this point, about 60, 70% of my app is shared. But what happens when I tap on something? Maybe I want to go to details about it. So what I did is I created some shared XAML. I just added a XAML file. You can see it right here in my shared code. It's a details page. It's a Xamarin Forms XAML UI, so I have an image, I have some labels, I have a button, I have a little spinner over here, and it has full data binding, everything that XAML developers know and love. And it's inside of a scroll view. So what I can do is I can take that and I can embed it into the iOS or Android application. So when I tap and I get that item selected, I say, go create that shared page. convert that to a UI or a UI view controller, and I'll push it over. On Android, I can come over into my main activity. And whenever I tap on it, over here, it's commented out in this code, whenever I tap on it, I'm going to start a details activity, which simply will go off, say create that details page, and convert it to a fragment. So now, if I come over here and I tap on this panda, tap on this monkey, what this will do is going to go ahead and push using the native stack to push that control over, our poor iOS Wi-Fi. It's there. But now this shared user interface that I created in just a minute, really because I just slapped down some controls, is now shared. But I'm still getting access to the native UI elements. Now as I add more and more onto this application, I can share more and more user interface and make this the best monkey and panda application in the entire world. I'm sure Apple will approve it. But at the same time, we want to give you access to every single API and every single platform. Like I said, we're proud of the tradition of shipping same-day support. We already shipped Android Oreo support near day one, and we shipped same-day support for iOS 11. What's great is that it's not just iOS. It's tvOS, watchOS support. So if you want to create great offline watchOS applications, you can. You have access to CoreML, ARKit, Vision, all of the APIs in every single operating system, day one, so you're ready. At the same time, we know that the applications are outgrowing what's built into the box. So you need to leverage the power of super awesome APIs and a great backend. And that's where Azure comes in. I tried to fit Azure on a slide, and I couldn't. This is half of Azure. This is every single, or half of every single service inside of Azure. What I try to do at Microsoft is not only ensure that developers have a great way of building cross-platform apps, but that every single one of these services works great no matter how you're developing an application. If you're developing it with Xamarin, we're going to give you a cross-platform API to do it. So I work heavily with our cognitive services team, our SQL database team, our Cosmos DB teams, our authentication teams. So if you want to log in with Azure AD or Microsoft Auth, you write a line of code. You don't have to learn 4 or 5 SDKs. You write one line of code, and that's how you should do auth. Now, I talked a little bit, and I mentioned something called cognitive services. These are my favorite thing ever in the entire world, and I say that about a lot of things, and this is one of my favorites. It enables me to pretend that I'm a machine learning master, really, in a way, and that I know anything about artificial intelligence. I have no idea, but I can call an API. I can call an API that will analyze my images. It'll tell me how happy I am, how sad I am, who I am. I can call an API to translate one language to another language in real time. Cognitive services offer developers a cross-platform, cloud-enabled smart for their application. So let's take this application and extend it and optimize it here. So what I've done back in Visual Studio is I've come in here. And what I've gone ahead and done is I've added, I'm going to manage, I'm in the middle of this. I've added a cross-platform API to automatically detect happiness of any photo. So I've added the emotion API of cognitive services. Check this out. I simply create an emotion service client. I say recognize anything asynchronously and return some results. I'll go through all the faces that I detect in a photo and give me a happiness level, and I'll display that back. What's cool is this is all in the shared code. So what I can do is I can scroll a little bit further down. I could tap on any image, just go ahead and analyze that. Or better yet, what if I took a photo? That sounds pretty great. So what I'll do is I'll use our media camera plugin. So from, again, another single line of code, I will take a photo and then pass it to my emotion service. So let's check that out. When I come back over here, I'm going to come into my Android device, and that's a little bit fun because it's on a physical camera. I'm going to hit that button. It's going to call that method. So what I can do is I can see and analyze my face before I drink coffee in the morning. Not a happy camper. That was me, 8 a.m. What this will do is take that photo stream, send it up to the back end over that great internet connection, and we'll get a dialog back of 0.08%. Now, after drinking some coffee out here this morning, it's a little bit different of a story. So I come in, always real happy after 3 or 4 or 18 cups of coffee. It goes out again, reconfigures, and hopefully 100% happy. Now, what's great is that even though I'm on a simulator over here, I can come in, and if things are working, look at it go. I can pick a photo, and I can do the same analysis. So no matter how you're developing there, let's do it. Let's see if it gives me a second. I'm out of time, but that's OK. We'll paint a picture of me, because I'm always super. Let's do this one there. Now, what's great is it's the same exact code. So I've literally written very minimal code inside of the iOS or Android application to do that. So again, it's going to go off. It's going to go do some stuff. And I'm 100% happy. There we go. All right, let's round it out here, because I'm over time. Perfect. You can extend and optimize. Xamarin isn't just for awesome monkey applications. It's for any application. We work and build out great game engines and 3D engines, and work with all sorts of great companies to extend and optimize, such as Monogame and Coco Sharp and Urho Sharp. We also realized that developers are doing awesome things. So we created Urho Sharp, which is a cross-platform 3D, VR, and AR framework. It's like Xamarin Forms UI, but for 3D. You can build full games, you can do charts and graphs, or heck, we know that HoloLens and augmented reality is a huge thing, so we have cross-platform augmented reality from a single shared code base. At the same time, we have great things coming in Xamarin Forms. A whole bunch of great new optimizations and performance, and we already support iOS, Android, and UWP. We're going further. We're going to support Linux. We already support now Mac OS today in the latest release. We have a WPF coming out. We've worked with Samsung for Tizen devices, so you can run .NET and XAML on your Samsung toasters. And people in the community, since everything in Xamarin is free and everything is open source, have already created a Unity cross-platform UI on top of it. It's bananas. You can get started for free. Install Visual Studio. We have great e-learning completely for free where you can become a certified Xamarin developer. I got 3 minutes left, but thank you so much.
Thank you, James. Thanks so much. Congratulations on a great talk. We have like 3 minutes for a quick Q&A. 3 minutos de preguntas y respuestas. Pueden preguntar en español o inglés. Creo que vamos a alcanzar a hacer solamente 2. Levanten sus manos, por favor. ¿Quiénes tienen alguna pregunta por aquí?
Okay, thank you for your talk. It was great. If Xamarin is so good, like you showed us, why are there still people developing for iOS on Xcode or Android, or I don't know if people are still developing for Windows Phone, but why are people still developing not using Xamarin?
That's a great question. So I always get a question usually around why wouldn't you develop with Xamarin, or why isn't every single company in the entire world developing with Xamarin? Well, I work with tons of single developers, small teams, and large corporations. If you're already a C# developer, Xamarin just makes sense. If you're a Java developer and you're like, I only ever care about Android and that's all I'm ever going to target and I don't care about iOS, why would you go and learn something new? Right? That's kind of some mentality. But what we often see is that it's usually not just one application. The moment you want to go to another platform, then you actually need to adopt some cross-platform UI and some cross-platform technology, and that's why Xamarin is the best. So as corporations are going, they're going more and more over it. At the same time, there may be actually organizations that are all web developers. I'm not going to tell an organization to fire everyone and force web developers to learn C#. I was a C# developer, and my company forced me to try to do JavaScript and HTML. So I quit, and I went to go work at Xamarin, where I could I could build mobile apps every single day. So it's always that struggle. People sometimes don't want to change, and at the same time, people are in their same ways. But if you are in that silo approach, what we find is that you're not just building one application, you're building 5, 10, 20 applications, right? And that's where that cross-platform story comes in to it. I think that there's a great place for all sorts of different cross-platform technologies to fit who you are as a developer, but I do think Xamarin is the best technology, whether you're developing one application or all applications across every platform. It's not really an answer, it's more just like, I think it's amazing. But of course, people are people, right? If someone was like, hey, this Java cross-platform thing is the best thing ever, I'm gonna not do that because I'm gonna not lowercase everything for no good reason, right? That's not it. That's kind of how I look at it, but yeah. One more question, yeah.
Okay, we'll talk. So I was wondering, a few months ago, I watched in Channel 9, Xamarin is supporting 3 platforms, Android, iOS, and Windows Phone. What's going on with Windows Phone right now? What is the future of Windows Phone? You talk about the Xamarin future, but what's going on with Windows Phone?
Yeah, great question. So you have to remember that Xamarin supports every single platform, right? Because .NET supports every single platform. We support UWP applications, whether they're desktop, Mac OS applications, Linux applications, HoloLens applications, iOS, Android, Watch, tvOS. We support everything, right? Often on a slide, we just show three things. But that means that you can still share code even with an old WinForms app, with a Silverlight application. You can share code everywhere, right? Windows Phone itself, I think, well, I forget what his name is that said it, but I can't speak on behalf of Microsoft, but UWP itself, Windows 10, the future there is Xbox, HoloLens, desktop. And I don't really know what phone is doing at the same time, right? So that's above my pay grade to make those decisions. So yeah, but I'm an Android guy, so.
James Montemagno, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, James.